At this time, I'd like to introduce our mental health panel, featuring speakers Tom Perrone, Deb Newell, and Stacy McKay. Tom Perrone is a leading speaker, trainer, and consultant based in Tampa, Florida. Tom has spent years working with executives and high-performance teams within fast-growing companies to provide exceptional results. Tom believes that anyone can fulfill a higher purpose when properly led, structured, and motivated. Deb works full-time as a PM consultant with Real-Time Consulting Services, which offers expert one-on-one consulting for the property management business owner. Deb's expertise stems from Six Sigma training and in providing bottom-line results with a lean management style. Stacy McKay is a real estate broker, property management trainer, a certified relational wisdom instructor, conflict coach, and mediator. She has served NARPM in several leadership roles, currently serving as the Florida State Chapter of NARPM Affiliate Chair. The topic she is sharing on emotional intelligence has served her well in her role of 13 years as Business Development Manager for Rental Home Management Services Incorporated in Orlando. All right, take it away, panelists.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to COVID Crazy How to Cope, a panel on mental health. My name is Alex Whiteoff with the Allegiant Management Group in Orlando, Florida. I am the 2021 NARPM Orlando Central Florida President, and I will be your host and moderator for today's session. First, I'd like to pass it over to Stacy McKay. Stacy, I have a quick question for you. What differences have you seen on an emotional level due to COVID with tenants, owners, and vendors?
So let me back up just one second, Alex, and just talk about where we all are as property managers, brokers, and realtors as it pertains to just the emotions of what we've all gone through this year. You know, we're 10 months into the new decade, and we've all experienced things that none of us were really prepared for. I know in my lifetime, and I think I'm probably the oldest one on this panel, I have not ever experienced a worldwide pandemic, as I'm sure none of you have as well. And so none of us going into 2020 with our hopes and aspirations were prepared on many levels, especially on the emotional level and the tolls that this, could take. So basically how it pertains though specifically to our industry and to our tenants and owners is that we need to understand they're going through those same emotions that we are as well. So sometimes they can irritate us and, when we're not even dealing with the pandemic, let's say, but the fact that they too may have been relegated to work from home. And many people in our industry and those in every industry are experiencing virtual burnout. So we're dealing with emotions that are running high. And if we are not equipped ourselves to deal with our own emotions, then how are we going to deal with the emotions of our tenants, our owners, our vendors, even the people we work with? So that's what I've seen is this heightened emotions just due to the circumstances we're dealing with that none of us were prepared to deal with.
Right. Deb, tell me how company processes or a lack thereof affect the performance and mental health of the team and the owner of companies.
Alex, thanks for having me. That's a really good question. So what I have found in working with a lot of companies is that when your processes are out of sync, when your employees are telling you how overwhelmed they are, when they're like, I'm working all the time, and now I'm having to work from home, or even if it's a hybrid, they're maybe coming into the office a couple days a week, or maybe they are 100% virtual now. That's a lot of stress on the employee, which actually causes processes to fall out of sync. Even if you had your processes documented and you are working with an outside automation tool, you still have this human factor that kind of causes us to have like a little bit of a brain fog. And so employees do feel a lot more stressed. They're a little bit more heightened. And Stacy's correct. I mean, now we have, it's not even just our owners and it's not our tenants, because we have to be this empathetic person where, our owners are a little stressed because of money and maintenance issues and things that could be happen. And then tenants are stressed because either they're out of a job or they're barely making ends meet. And now you have employees probably put in that same position. So when that happens, it's interesting because it's almost like they can, like I said, they fall a little out of sync on, well, I know what I'm supposed to do, but they seem to be working even harder than they should. They're not working as smart as they had been. And now that we're all kind of not in a same location. It's not like we can just yell over our cubicle or into the next office to say, wait, hey, what are you doing with this person? Are you accepting them, or are you moving these people in? There's just a little bit of a disconnect. And so even if you're meeting online with your team every day or once a week, it's essential that we somehow figure out a way to understand that their needs are, we have to really address the needs of our team, because we need the team. We can't do it all on our own. And we all know that, but at the same time, we can't just leave them to be hoping that they know what to do and they're kind of left on their own. So processes are really going to be important. So what I tell everybody is, just like you grow a company, you're at 200 doors and your goal is 400 doors, and you get to 400 doors, you've reached a plateau. Now you have to kind of reorganize everything inside, my processes included, because we're going to do things a little bit differently. So the same way that you reach these plateaus in your business with growth, you're going to reach these same plateaus with your team. So you have to adjust the processes to kind of accommodate everything that's going on around us, and have a little bit more patience. We kind of have to draw that in a little bit more, and then really help them restructure these processes. So what you guys were doing 7 months ago in the office can't be the same today. It has to be different. And so a lot of us changed everything on the fly, right? So COVID started March and April. We were kind of tweaking certain processes, mostly policies, right? Especially with late fees and things like that, and rent being late. That was our number one concern. But this is 7 months and it's still going on. And so we have to re-look at everything and say, what can I do differently to know what's happening with my team, to make them still feel like we're all together and work together. That was a really long answer to your question. I feel like I repeated myself a few times, but hopefully that made sense.
Especially now more than ever, you definitely are having to adapt. So that has been huge. Another question I have for you, Deb: what are the biggest issues you have seen surrounding the foundation of property management companies and how it plays a part in the daily operations?
Well, the foundation is your framework to your company, right? And it doesn't even have to be it can be a framework. This could be applied to any company. So your foundation, just like, we all deal with homes. So I love that analogy, is if your foundation is rocky, everything's going to be built on sand, right? But you need to have a solid foundation. You need to have that framework in place. And if you don't, stop and figure out how to get it going. And it's not going to be overnight, and it's not going to be in a matter of days. It's going to take you weeks to actually figure this out. So that framework really is going to be essential for you to really build out the rest of what you do in property management. And I look at it, it's this life cycle of property management, and there's all of these milestones that happen. We have the showings, the application process, the move-in process, the move-out process, the lease renewals. There's all of this, right? So it's taking each one of those buckets and really analyzing it and breaking it apart and seeing what we have to do differently and building that framework and that foundation for that process.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. Foundation, is where it all starts. Tom, everyone, Tom Perrone. So I would like to ask you, Tom, what would be your approach and tips for approaching difficult conversations right now? We're having to have a lot of those difficult conversations with our vendors, tenants, and owners. What are some tips to approaching?
Thank you so much, Alex. I really appreciate the question. It's an honor to be here. Obviously, in property management, difficult conversations is nothing new. Any property manager is having to have tough, crucial, stressful conversations on a regular basis. So this is really adding fuel to a fire that already existed. COVID is just making it worse. It's just harder now. And so the training that we've always needed as property managers, trainings on how to have critical conversations, is just at a critical mass now. We need it more than ever. To just give a simple answer to that question, I train kind of a process I call an ESS process. It stands for empathy support statements. And I find this works not only in hostage negotiation, and it works really well when you're having arguments with loved ones, to get us to more of a rational level, but it really works in just any difficult situation. So whether it's a tenant or really anyone, but let's just take tenant conversations, for example, and they come and they're just melting down in front of you. Our instincts, which are good, are designed to want to jump in and solve. Here's the information you need. Here's the action you need to take. The problem is most people aren't ready for that information yet. They need to feel heard and they need to feel felt before they can even receive your good advice. So a simple technique in approaching that, and it works really good if you don't even know what to say, just to give some delay after you've received the onslaught of emotion. You lead with empathy. So you simply start off with, I can appreciate. So just think of that. Just whatever you're going to say, it's I can appreciate ... So I can appreciate you're going through a really challenging time right now. I can appreciate that you're having a lot of stress due to this notice you were served. I can appreciate your frustration. The words aren't as important as the tone. It's not a magic phrase that disarms the person who's in front of you. The tone causes the human connection, but they need to know I can appreciate where you're at, even if you don't agree that they should be feeling that way. I can appreciate you're going through a really rough time right now. Then you want to bridge. You don't just jump in and this is what you need to do. You need to bridge, and it's called a permission bridge. So you say something like, would it be all right if I made a couple of suggestions as to how we might move forward? So I can appreciate you're going through a really challenging time right now. It's understandable you'd be under a lot of stress given what you just told me. Would it be all right if I made a couple of suggestions to help us move forward? Once you get that permission, it's much easier at that point to then move forward. But the way to move forward is to actually ask a couple of questions. So don't jump in and make the suggestion. Ask a couple of questions to show that you really want to seek to understand before being understood. Then actually give your suggestion on how they should move forward. Simply adding that to your approach will get you miles further down the road than even the right solution given right away. Or educating before empathizing tends to be how we shoot ourselves in the foot.
Well, I can appreciate those tips.
I actually that was really good, Tom. I really
Why do you
enjoyed
sound
that.
so? I can appreciate how surprised you are, Deb, at my answer.
No, that's not what I meant. No, it was really good. I enjoyed it. Okay,
Good.
moving on.
It works, and you know what? If I used it more at home, I'd probably have better relationships there too. See, I just told you everything my wife's been telling me to do for the past 18 years.
This sounds like a bigger issue than we need to get into.
Well, I concur. Great advice there, because knowing emotional intelligence, that is so others focused, and that is an element that is crucial in those relationships.
Stacy, if you could, please tell us a little bit more about the emotional intelligence and how that's playing into COVID-19 and our lives today.
Well, the emotional intelligence, and I actually have a workshop on it tomorrow afternoon that I would love for you all to attend, but it is really soft skills and having the ability to have, just as Tom was talking about, everything he just showed as an example is soft skills. And so many times companies put so much into the hard skill arena, what jobs you do, what your titles are, what your abilities are, and they don't focus on also equipping people with the soft skills, communication skills, empathy skills, just being kind to people, just trying to possibly put yourself in their shoes as much as you can. So that's what emotional intelligence really has, the crux is learning soft skills. So add all these additional emotions and then your own, just like Tom said, we're all dealing with our own situations at home. Then we have our work situations. We're dealing with mandates and tenants not paying and owners that are frustrated over their finances. How do we deal with all those things? So the best thing is to work on your own emotional intelligence, and to just back up is evaluate yourself. How am I doing? How's my self-talk? Am I going home every night going, oh my God, I just hate this job? You know, what are you telling yourself? What is the self-talk that's going on in you? Because one half of emotional intelligence is self. It's how things are affecting me, how I'm reacting to things. Am I maybe on the edge of potentially some depression? You know, are my finances being affected by what's going on? And how is that now impacting the business or even my home life? So that's sort of the emotional intelligence. There's self and there's others. And then it's, you know, in between using those soft skills and both of those, and you know how that is affecting you.
All right, Deb, we have a question for you. How important are company meetings and how often should you be having them?
Company meetings are going to be essential. And I think it's going to be different for everyone. A lot of it has to do with your company size and probably the setup of how you have everything going on. But at a minimum, once a week. If possible, the touch points throughout the day are really important. We can't just leave our team kind of on their own just to do whatever. So I think those touch points are going to be important. How often you do that is at least maybe daily. And it may be where you have to kind of have these one-on-ones with each team member. I feel what's really important is that they feel that you're also engaged still with them. And it's almost easier for us as business owners to solve somebody else's problems or try to. And now I'm trying not to do what Tom said not to do, which is educate, although, because I love educating everybody on, you know, but I think the biggest thing is to help them understand the why things are happening, why we're changing these things, because when your teams don't adopt that change, that also causes a lot of strife. So keep in mind, this is already one big change that's going on. Now we're going to add in all these little changes as a business owner because it's going to help my business be more streamlined and be more efficient, which I promise will help you as an employee, but we need to kind of tell them. So these touch points throughout the week are going to be really important to have more one-on-one with. But as a team, we should at a minimum once a week have a meeting. And that's to keep us all on the same page. Hey, there's a move out that's happening. I need to go grab the lockbox. I don't live next to here. Is there anyone that can actually go pick that lockbox up? It's, you know, everybody on the same page. Who's moving in? Who's moving out? It's all these things that we did in the office that were casual conversations that we need to like structure now.
Okay. We did receive a question, and I'm going to pose this to all you, but I do want to start with Tom first. What are you doing differently in your company with your teams now in this new environment? Tom?
So great question. And actually, I'll just kind of borrow from Deb on that. And the companies I'm working with, the number one thing we're doing is having more touch points. It's just staying more connected, especially with the remote working environment. That's been critical. The companies I work with that went all remote and they've had daily huddles and multiple touch points have done best. Now, again, to piggyback off what Deb was saying earlier, structure is key to those touch points. Just calling people and saying, hey, how's it going, isn't near as powerful as having put some thought into those touch points and being deliberate about the questions you're asking. Now, the other thing we have to be cautious of is being unrealistically optimistic. I think encouragement is always good, but right now, understanding goes a lot further than optimism. I can't tell you we're 15 days from this going away. I think we've learned that lesson, but I can hear what you're going through and empathize with you. And that goes far. Instead of saying, I'm working on it, I promise I'll save the world next week, we can say, I understand you're in a tough spot. Here's what I can do, but here's what you know. I'm here for you because we're talking regularly and intentionally, proactively, not reactively. And as little as that may sound, that goes a long way because I can see the companies that aren't doing that and they're losing people. They're just not engaged and they're scared and they don't feel involved. And it's amazing how much different the environment is for those who are involved.
All right, Stacy. So I know you have your hands in a little bit of everything. She's the jack of all trades. What are some things you're doing differently with your teams now?
We are just really making sure everybody gets time off as they need that. So we rotate and people cover for somebody to be able to take a week off. I mean, our bookkeeper who works her heart out at the company, and we manage several hundred homes, she's up in Asheville this week. Just being able to have her go, and then we all, everybody pitches in, and we're all covering for these various positions just to make sure people have that mental health time, because there is only so much any of us can take if we're just working day in, day out, day in, day out, and we're never doing any self-care and just some time to be able to step away. So I think that's been one of the biggest things that we've done. We are working in the office. Actually, our office has been open all along. It was closed to the public for the first, 2 months, really to about the 1st of June. But so we are actually in every single day. They're not having to deal with the virtual world like a lot of people, are having to, that are probably on this call, that they may be in a completely 100% virtual situation. And that isolation can have its own impact on your mental health as well. I know I would probably go crazy if I had to just be at the house all the time. It would be very taxing, but we still understand that people need that time off because we're dealing with, very adverse situations with tenants, owners, and our vendors alike. So.
Deb, what are you doing? What are you seeing?
Well, I think it's interesting as I'm listening to all of this, I'm kind of thinking of some of the people I have been fortunate enough to work with. And I think empathy is, we talk about it a lot, and we've been saying this word. It's really hard for some people to feel empathy to others. So, I half joke and I say, have a lot of therapy, but therapy is actually really good, right? So, and this taking care of yourself is really going to be important, because I can't even help or even try to understand if I don't help myself first. So I think empathy is one of those words that we have to really kind of embrace and go, okay, what is it going to be for me to be empathetic? Because it can't just be words. Tenants and employees, everybody's really smart. So they know when we're not sincere. And it's going to be important for us to kind of realize that we have to somehow help our team, and we have to embody empathy somehow. And so if you can't figure that out, and if you aren't empathetic, and it was never in your nature before, you have to figure that piece out, because your team needs you, and they're literally looking to you as a leader, but also as somebody who is going to help them get through the situation. Both Tom and Stacy brought up some really good points. Like Tom's like, yeah, we're not going to get through this in 15 days or in 15 minutes or in 50, it's going to be a while. And then Stacy, you have to kind of bring in and, give people time off, right? Let them find this, but at the same time, we can't lose control as the company owner. Like, we still have a business to run. This is really hard for some people. It's a business, but now all of this personal stuff that never really was there. I mean, there's drama in every company, but now it's just like tenfold. And you're like, I have to deal with that too. Oh my gosh, their kids aren't going to school. They have to bring their kids to like now that's just different. And for some people, it's hard for us to put that, it's hard for us to say, gosh, well, my kids are all grown. What was that like? I don't remember. And how do we handle that? So that's really hard. So to say this is one thing, it's really, how do we act on this? And so, yes, I tongue in cheek say a lot of therapy, but I kind of mean figure it out and do what helps you.
A lot of people are saying that their home used to be a refuge, and now there's that extra level with issues at home. How are you separating, you're going from 9 to 5, doing your 9 to 5. How are you making that transition from work to home and, doing that peacefully, Tom?
So that is so critical right now. That is an issue that has to be addressed, and that has to be addressed on every level. We are in a different world for how we need to consider time management. The 9 to 5 at home may not work the same way as the 9 to 5 to the office did. We have different coping mechanisms, different way of taking breaks in office environments, different ways of collaborating. And we are connected in a different way in the home office. And I don't think that it's something we all thought would be different. We added in Zoom all the time, things like that. That was great for getting the job done, for carrying conversations on, but it didn't consider what was going on. As a matter of fact, most companies at first were like, we're scared everyone's going to just not work. That hasn't been the case. Actually, they're working too much and stressing themselves out even more and not sure how to work that out with all the people that they're sharing their home with. So this is an area where real leadership needs to be considerate. We need to not assume this is how it needs to happen. We need to investigate with our teams, explore what's going on at home, how they're managing it, share that collaboratively, and then we need to be lenient. We need to allow people different schedules. Now, I know in the property management world that can be challenging. Hey, who's manning the phones today? Who's manning the trouble tickets? How are we getting this stuff done? I get we have 24-hour response, but do you feel like you get lulls in the day? Are those lulls in the day reactive, so you have to check out for a minute? It would be much better if they're proactive and more frequent, and they involve walking away and coming back. And the teams, I'm seeing that leadership's taking the initiative on that, telling their teams, go and do it this way and let me know if that's working better, are doing a lot better than leaving people on their own. Because there's a guilt complex when people walk away from their computer right now, which isn't helping. There's always work to be done. So it's not just you need time off. It needs to be from leadership. It needs to be understood. So-and-so is not available on chat right now. We have to start respecting chat indicators that I can walk away and feel as though I'm away. And those are little things, but man, they pay dividends. And again, it's different than the office looked. And so you have to find that and create a new company culture around that, not leave it to the individual.
I think that's a good point. I want to piggyback off of that because I think this goes back to like our processes, right? So some of these things have to be done in business hours, right? Owners call, we want to kind of address their concerns. We still want to have them be aware, we still want to hold office hours with our clients, because I think that's important. If we're too available after hours for our clients, that can spin out of control pretty quickly. Same with tenants. So hold those boundaries. But some of those things don't have to be like, I have to, Johnny on the spot, oh my gosh, I got to answer this phone call. There is something called voicemail. It's okay. But have a rule. Is it voicemails answered, if it's a call before 3, if it's a call after 3, things like that. Then there's certain things that they just couldn't get to throughout the day that wasn't like business hour needed, but it does need to be done. So do I care if they did it at 9 o'clock at night or 8 o'clock at night? No, I don't. So allow them to kind of learn their own time management that works for them, but have maybe some boundaries to say, okay, during business hours, this is what I need you to, be aware of and be kind of in the present for, and be flexible to that and be okay. So if they're not answering your text right away, unless it's an emergency, then you would call them, like you would call your team. But if it's something that you're just texting them for, be okay if they're not going to answer you right away, because you don't know what else is going on in their immediate world right now. And also to kind of go back to Tom's point is know exactly where your employees are working out of their home and make sure that setup is going to be conducive to them doing their job, and also that you're okay with. So, if they're like, well, I have my computer in my bedroom, and you're like, okay, maybe not have a Zoom call, or just, but that's okay. Let's talk, let's have this out, set the expectation, and then let them, kind of run their own, manage that piece of it. Let them be okay with making that decision. If it's not okay and you see something in a Zoom call, just address it later, but it's not going to be the end of the world. We're all doing this. And I think it's amazing how owners are a lot more sympathetic. One of the things I have been doing, I'm going to share this because I took this from Michael Kraus. So if he's on this call, kudos to Michael, but I've done this now twice, as owner Zoom calls. So I still also have a property management company, but I have tasked my team to do all owner. So every quarter now we are doing owner Zoom calls with all of our owners. They're all invited, and it's by RSVP. So we have an agenda. Each of my team members is responsible for a portion of that agenda. It's important for owners to feel connected to us outside of email, outside of a blog post, outside of a chat, outside of a text. Have it so they now feel a little bit more connected And it goes to being what Tom said, be proactive and not reactive. Because now owners can see, look, we have this agenda, we're telling them what's going on, this executive order, how the eviction moratorium affects us, how is rent getting collected, how are you guys doing inspections? Like all these things that owners are wondering about, just tackle it and do it. And then that changes the whole course of how we continue to do business. So now little mistakes or little things that happen are almost more forgiven because now owners are empathetic to us. So it's almost putting that feeling, putting it back on them because we're human, we're not a robot, and we're doing the best we can. And if they see that, it lets down their guard, and it diffuses so many arguments and unknowns and situations. So it's pretty risky to do, but Michael had sworn by it. So I challenged my team, and it's been great. And owners actually really like it.
I think that's a fantastic idea. And I was talking to my husband. He's also been in real estate a long time. I'm 34 years. He's been in 20 years. But we were talking about the tenants. Okay, so we've got that owner aspect. And we're like, why are these tenants, like, there's so many more maintenance calls. There's so many more issues with maintenance. And what we realized is they're all working from home. We're in Florida. So right now where Deb has snow on the ground outside of her window, she was telling us I'm jealous, but it's still in the upper 80s here in Orlando today. My air's been, going today. So we have tenants now that used to get up, go to work. They were gone all day, and they may come home to an issue with the air conditioning, but now we're seeing all these additional maintenance, like physical issues, because they're working from home all the time. So they're using the air conditioning more. They're putting a lot more strain. And just like we said, your home needs to be a place of refuge. And if they're sitting there, for one, having to deal with everything virtually, they're having maintenance issues with their home, and we may even have challenge being able to get those handled quickly and efficiently. Then on top of that, they're like looking at these four walls. They maybe aren't paying their rent. Maybe they can't pay their rent. Maybe we don't know what the situations are. All those factors, we need to take that into account. And just like Tom said at the start of the call, it's having those conversations, pulling out information, having some empathy and understanding to their situation, because they're maybe feeling like a caged animal. Their finances are not good. So again, understanding that they're dealing with dynamics that we normally didn't have to deal with under a lot of circumstances.
Definitely. So what I wanted, this is a question from me. I've been waiting to ask this question since we've started planning this session. This is going to go to all you guys. I definitely want to get all your guys' input. I've had this conversation with Stacy. We're on Zoom all the time. How are you handling Zoom burnout? What can you do to, try to keep it fresh? And, I'm on Zoom 3-4 times a day. So what are you guys doing to, handle the Zoom burnout? Because it's something that's common and I'm seeing it everywhere.
I was going to say drinking. I don't drink, so that's not going to be a hard one. But no, it's that's a really good question. There is such a thing as Zoom burnout. It's why? I actually think we're connecting more than we probably did before. Don't you think? In a different way, even though we're kind of doing this and I'm kind of watching you on the screen, I feel, at least I'm like, great. But if you're doing this constantly all day long, owners and tenants, and we're encouraging them, hey, call me or Zoom me. It is very exhausting, and it's a lot. It's a lot of mental, like my brain is full and I can only I need to turn off. But I think that's where you have to have breaks yourself and allow yourself a little bit of time in between calls, and also just to kind of, it's this is the same thing with corporations. How corporations will always just do meeting after meeting after meeting. I always used to say, well, how do they get anything done? They're always in meetings. Like, when do they leave the meeting and actually go execute whatever it is they were meeting about? And so you have to give yourself time to do that. So you can't just you have to block your calendar. So either they can't schedule with you, or you just you have to do something, but you can't do it meeting after meeting and not give yourself a little bit of a breather. So yes, I jokingly said drink in between. That might not be good, but you have to do something. So whether it's listen to music or whatever it is that kind of makes you just reconnect. I have when my son was really, really, really young, and he's 21 now. So this is when he was a little kid, like 5 or 6. I always called it whenever he would take a nap or he would go to bed at night and then wake up in the morning, it was like he reset his clock. Like sleep did that for him. He loved naps because it reset his whole, like who he was. I find that we have to do sort of that same thing. Okay, maybe it's not taking a nap in the middle of the day, but it's something. What resets our clock to help us kind of go, okay, I can tackle this again. And it could be food, it could be just a quick walk around, whatever. Exercise is proven to be obviously a key part of mental health and those endorphins. So, and whatever it is, even if it's just a walk, something that resets that clock that helps you tackle it and look at something with a fresh set of eyes again.
Absolutely, because it goes back to that self-talk. I mean, I've had to tell myself, like, I cannot do one more call today. I just can't do it. And then it's that self-talk. It's like, just like what Deb said. I mean, what do I need to do to make it across the finish line today and to make this one more call? I mean, I'll admit it. I mean, I'm a long-term member of Business Network International, and my meetings are on Tuesday mornings. So I left my house at 6:45 this morning to get to the office so that I could do that call. And I thought, am I just going to take an absence today? We have our conference starting. Then I was like, I really don't want an absence. And I really love seeing the people in my group. And I pushed through and I made it to that. But you do have to sort of ask yourself, can I do this? What do I need to do to make it for that one more call, that one more additional call? For me, I like to educate when I teach any of my courses or classes or seminars or whatever. I like to do it with a live audience. That I feed off of that. I love going to see people. My kids are almost all grown. I have 3 grown daughters, and I'm down to 1 kid left at home that'll empty nest in about a year and a half. And I was really, this is 2020. I'm just going to be able to go teach. We know that all changed and everything went to Zoom. I mean, I've been blessed to be able to teach to different NARPM Alex group, the NARPM Orlando chapter and various chapters, but everything's on Zoom. And I'm like, it's just not the same as getting to go see my people and get to touch people and see them. So I think too, this social distancing that we've all sort of had to, we can't even really give the hugs to the people when we do get to see them, or we're not supposed to. And so I think that's some of the things we're all having to deal with as well.
So I'm on meetings. I would say my average is 4 to 6 hours a day on Zoom. The scale is reminding me of that. It's clear, right? We're all feeling it. So I'm going to give you just 5 quick tips that I've been giving my clients on this. These are simple things. The bad news is, these really do need to come from leadership. It's not something that everyone at every level is going to have the control to be able to do. But here's the 5 quick things you can do. First of all, and this goes to executives do these same things that are in meetings all day. This is what they do. So it starts off with preparing more. We can't get together in meetings and kind of figure out what's going on anymore. It's because we can't all talk at the same time on these things. That's the biggest stress of Zoom, is we can't have cross conversations easily. So agendas need to be clearer. Preparation. This is your part. These are the questions you're going to be asked. Send your questions in earlier on. Preparation before these meetings has to happen. That's 1. 2, you have to have shorter meetings because of that. So I'm talking short. Like 15 to 20 minute meetings is ideal. Third, it's great if you let people turn their cameras off sometimes. Like if one person is going to be talking or presenting for 15 minutes and you're in a Zoom meeting, let it be known it's okay if that person has a 15-minute presentation to turn your camera off. So you can do things like scratch your face, take a drink, look away, talk to someone else in the room, even step out if you needed to. And you're not like this the whole time staring at your screen. That's stressful. It just is. So that's the third thing. Fourth thing, every 30 minutes, make it a company rule. Every 30 minutes, you have to have a break. So I prefer 20 minutes or 25 minutes and a 5-minute break, 25 and 5, 25 and 5. That's 4. Fifth, if you're having a big presentation, don't use Zoom meetings. Use Zoom webinar like we're doing right now. So everyone's not like having to stare in the camera, but they can watch and multitask. Now, I know you don't get the same level of engagement that way, but you see how many people aren't really engaging on Zoom. You see the TV flickering on their face over here. They're watching the baseball game. Instead, they're on email. That's as distracting as them talking over you or not muting out. Use Zoom webinar if you're going to have a long presentation. And so anything over an hour, I don't use Zoom meetings. If it's over an hour, it's a Zoom webinar. And then I can bring people in as I need to on those meetings. So those are 5 things that I've seen. If you're doing that, you don't feel as burnt out because things start to take background when they can. And I'm not in Zoom stare all day long.
I wrote those down. I definitely need to take those into consideration. So thank you. Everyone, if you have any questions for Deb, Stacy, or Tom, please put it in the session chat. We will be going into some more of your questions. The next question I wanted to ask Stacy, I'm going to give this to Stacy. How do you balance empathy with your business?
So clarify that a little bit more in terms of balancing empathy. What you mean, being empathetic, but also still having rules, so to speak? Is that what we're talking about?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's very much like what Tom said. You need to sort of have your boundaries. You have to have things written out. So in these various circumstances, when these things happen, this is how I'm going to respond. Now, we're not always going to be able to be like robots and we just have everything, but where it helps to give us some sort of guidelines where we are balancing, we are doing those empathetic statements, but at the same time, letting them know what our boundaries are. I'll give a good example. We have a lot of our owners that are wanting to sell. Where normally if an owner wants to sell, we time it for when the tenant's lease is going to end so that it ends and they can sell the property without a tenant in the property. Now we're having lots of circumstances. The owners want to sell now. Well, we have a lease that's in place until the end of June of next year. That's one I'm dealing with right now. Well, these tenants push back. They don't want people in their home. I don't want a bunch of realtors. I don't want people showing my home. I don't want to get COVID. And so we have to be empathetic to that situation and what those risks are. But at the same time, we have rights per our lease agreement, right of entry. So I have a nice little form letter now that, again, shows empathy to their situation and their stance, but we also cannot preclude the owner from selling a property if they want to sell it, because they have that right, and it's right in our lease agreement that they have that right, and we have the right to entry. So then the question becomes, how do we impose our right, but at the same time are empathetic to their situation? So each one is its own set depending on what this situation is. I've had some where the tenants were great and they allowed us to sell it, and I've had other ones that we just turn it over to another realtor and they're the one fighting the battle every single time they have to get into that property. So it's got to be a balancing act between where you're not just, oh, the lease says this and this is what we're doing and we're giving you the 12 hours notice and we're coming in, but showing empathy at the same time, but still being able to enforce your right or what your lease says that you're able to do.
This next question I'm going to pose to Deb, since me, Tom, and Stacy are all in the beautiful, warm Florida weather. Now that we're going into the winter months and people will be more secluded inside, what are some things that, businesses can do, to keep people engaged and keep them, you're going to be stuck more inside a lot more now. What are some tips and tricks for the people that are in the colder climates, when they are, just trying to keep re-engaged and all of that?
I think it's so cute that you said the word cold in Florida. That doesn't happen. As it literally, I think I have almost 4 inches of snow outside and I'm stuck here in the office. So I'll probably be here for a while. So that was really cute, Alex. Thank you. I don't even know. I mean, we're kind of used to it, right? We kind of know what to do because this is just our life up in the north. So, but it's interesting because you're kind of, we've all been sort of stuck inside anyway because of the pandemic. So how do we do it? It's interesting because I thought about the question you were asking, Stacy, and so glad you asked her, because I'm like, that was a hard one. And this one's kind of a hard one too. I don't know. I mean, it's got to be a little creative. Work for a lot of people is actually a refuge in and of itself. People actually like to work. We are, as a country, we're just built on this beautiful foundation of this patchwork of small businesses and working, and we love this. This is kind of what drives us as humans. We like to be able to feel engaged somehow. So it's a balance, right? So how do we balance work and life? And that's really, really important. But it's just allowing it to happen. That's kind of going back to what I said. Don't be so worried if what you need that your team to do is not happening right when you want it to happen, but it does happen. So let them manage their time. Let them figure out their own thing, because they will do what's best for their family, for their situation. And we have to put a little trust into that. We hired them for a reason. We hopefully have trained them. And if we haven't, this is a great opportunity to make some training videos, to kind of re-engage in your business in a different way, kind of reintroduce all of these things to your team and have those touch points. But allowing them to also have this freedom to kind of say, I'm going to take an hour and I'm going to, go do something with my kid because they're in school and I have to do this, and be okay with that. And that's where they can piggyback off of other people on the team to say, can you help me? Can you cover this?
Okay, awesome. As we come to the end of this session, I would like to ask the panelists what they feel the key takeaways from this session would be, and if they'd like to summarize their thoughts. Tom, let's start with you. What would you like the attendees to take away from this session?
Don't feel like you have to solve everybody's problems, but you do need to be human. You need to be there for them. You'll get a lot further being available and empathetic than thinking, I got to have an answer for everything.
Deb, what would you like attendees to take away from this session?
Kind of goes along the same line. Take care of yourself. You can't help your team if there's something going on in your life. So, it's find out what will help you to help your team. You can become a better leader if you do certain things. And if it's talking to another person, if it's, taking a little time out for yourself so you don't become reactive to situations, like take a breather, but figure out you, and then some clarity I think will happen.
Stacy, what would you like attendees to take away today?
I'm going to go ahead and stick on that vein of self-care. And that is, just don't feel like you're on an island by yourself. If you get to that point that you feel you're the only one that's feeling this or going through this, hopefully today's discussion has told you we're all dealing with different decisions and elements, and, not just the work situation, but the family situation. Maybe things are good at work, but you're feeling challenges at home, or vice versa. Either way, is if you begin to get to a point that you feel like you're on an island all by yourself, you need to seek some help. It could be therapy, it could be counseling, pick up a phone and talk to somebody that's a trusted person that you can sort of share that with, that can maybe encourage you and guide you.